The forest was quiet, too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that made you relax, but the kind that made your heart beat faster, waiting for something to happen. Every leaf looked still. Every sound felt heavy. The air itself seemed to be holding its breath. Ilara moved carefully through the glowing undergrowth. She was human, tall, calm, and trained to survive. But even with all her training, the silence of this alien world pressed on her nerves. Her suit made a faint hum as she adjusted her oxygen filter. The screen on her wrist flickered with faint readings of temperature, humidity, and unknown energy levels. "Everything is normal," she whispered to herself. But it didn't sound true. Ilara was part of the Frontier Exploration Corps, one of the few humans brave enough to travel beyond the known systems. She had landed on Grithin, for a wild planet known for its strange wildlife and magnetic storms. Her mission was simple: gather samples of glowing flora for research. But as the wind died completely and her sensors went silent, she felt something shift around her, like the forest itself was watching. Her boots crunched on the soft blue moss. Giant trees rose above her, their bark black as iron, their leaves shining like glass. The forest floor was full of soft light, little glowing insects floating through the mist. Beautiful, but not comforting. Ilara stopped to scan a tall flower that pulsed with slow light. As she leaned closer, she felt the back of her neck prickle. The device beeped once and then went dead. She frowned and tapped the screen. No signal. No power drop. It was just gone. That's when she heard it. A soft rustle. Behind her. Ilara froze. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Every sense sharpened. She waited, listening. The sound came again, slow, light, like something moving carefully through the leaves. She turned, flashlight raised. The beam cut through the mist and caught only dust and drifting spores. Nothing moved. The jungle looked still again. She took a deep breath. "It's just the wind," she muttered. But there was no wind. The forest had gone silent again, and silence was worse than noise. She walked on slower now, her flashlight moving side to side. Her eyes kept darting to the shadows, searching for movement. Each tree looked the same, but she had marked her path with digital beacons. Or so she thought. She glanced at her wrist. All her markers were gone. Her navigation was scrambled. The planet's magnetic field often caused this. But not like this. Not all at once. It felt wrong, deliberate, almost intelligent. Ilara reached a small clearing. Mist rolled across the ground, glowing faintly in the blue light of her lamp. She crouched, scanning for samples again, but something inside her said she wasn't alone. She didn't know why, she just knew. She straightened slowly. "If someone's out there," she called softly, "I don't mean harm." Her voice echoed softly and then vanished. No answer. Then she felt it. Something small landed on her shoulder, light as a feather, but alive. Her breath caught. Every muscle locked. She didn't turn. She didn't move. She could feel it. Small claws pressing to the fabric of her suit. Not sharp enough to cut, but firm enough to hold. She felt warm breath against her neck, too soft to be human, too close to be safe. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Slowly, her mind raced through her training. Don't panic. Don't make sudden moves. Alien life forms could be territorial, curious, or deadly. She couldn't tell which this one was. Not yet. The claws shifted slightly, moving along her back. One small sound escaped the creature. A soft, purring growl, like a cat mixed with static electricity. "Easy," she whispered. Her voice trembled, barely a sound. She reached up slowly, one hand at a time, ready to brush it away if it attacked. But the moment she moved, the creature froze too, as if it was thinking. Then she heard a tiny chirp. Not a growl, not a hiss, but a cry. It sounded afraid. Her heart softened just a little. She turned her head carefully. eyes glancing over her shoulder. That's when she saw it. The creature was small, silver-furred, with 4 legs and eyes that glowed gold in the dark. Its body shimmered like liquid metal under the light. It wasn't attacking. It was trembling, scared, just like her. Elara let out a slow breath. "Hey there," she whispered gently. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The little creature tilted its head, blinking. For a moment, they both stood still, just watching each other. Then, slowly, it climbed down her arm, using tiny claws to balance. It reached the ground and sniffed her boot. It looked like a mix between a fox and a panther cub. Cute, but not natural. Something built for survival. Elara's wrist device suddenly flickered back to life. The scanner picked up the creature's data and flashed a warning in red. Warning. Species, Predator Class Alpha. Juvenile detected. Her blood ran cold. Predator Class Alpha. That meant this was no harmless pet. It was a child of one of the most dangerous hunters known to the sector. She slowly crouched down, keeping her voice low. "Where's your mother?" The creature let out a soft chirp again, then turned its head toward the trees. The forest, silent until now, answered with a distant, deep roar that shook the ground. Elara's eyes widened. The sound came from far away, but it was getting closer. The cub pressed itself against her boot, trembling. Elara whispered, "Oh no." She turned off her light and crouched low. The jungle around her glowed faintly, shadows shifting between the trees. The sound of heavy breathing echoed in the dark. Somewhere in that endless forest, the predator was coming, and it was looking for its cub. Elara didn't move. The sound of the roar still echoed in her ears. It was deep, heavy, and full of power, the kind of sound that made every living thing freeze. The cub at her feet pressed closer, trembling. Its fur shimmered faintly under the blue glow of the forest. Elara's breath came slow and careful. She looked around, eyes searching the trees. The mist made everything blur together. Shapes moved that weren't really there, shadows twisting into monsters. But one thing she knew for sure, something big was out there, something alive. She crouched low and whispered to herself, "Okay, Elara, think. You're not food. You're not prey. Just move slow." The cub made a soft chirp again, almost like a question. Its eyes were bright gold, watching her. For a second, it didn't look dangerous at all, just lost. Elara reached out a hand, slowly. "It's all right, little one," she said softly. "I won't hurt you." The cub tilted its head and sniffed her fingers. Then, to her surprise, it stepped closer and pressed its tiny head against her hand. She felt its heartbeat, fast, light, and warm. Her wrist device blinked again, the scanner trying to make sense of the creature's biology. The screen flashed. Juvenile Predator Class Alpha, unknown DNA structure. Vital signs, elevated fear response. Elara muttered under her breath. "Yeah, I can see that." She looked into the cub's eyes again. They were full of emotion, fear, confusion, maybe even trust. She had seen animals like this before during her travels. Predators that protected their young fiercely. That meant the adult would be close. The forest was still, too still. She turned off her lamp and switched to low-light vision. The world became shades of green. She scanned the trees carefully. Every instinct screamed that something was watching her. The cub suddenly flinched and made a quiet squeak. Elara followed its gaze, up toward the branches. She saw nothing at first. Then 2 faint red lights blinked between the leaves. Eyes! Watching. Her pulse spiked. The creature above moved slowly, almost silently. It was huge. She couldn't see its full shape, but she saw the glint of sharp scales and the shimmer of silver fur like the cub's. The mother. Elara's throat went dry. She knew she had to move before it came closer. Slowly, she picked up the cub. It made no sound, only clung to her sleeve. She whispered, "Stay quiet." The mother creature shifted again, sniffing the air. Its claws dug into the tree bark with a sound like knives scraping metal. Ilara turned crouched and began to move away, one slow step at a time. Each movement felt like a lifetime. Her boot touched a branch that cracked under her weight. The forest exploded with sound. The mother roared, a deafening, furious cry that sent birds screaming into the air. Ilara ran. She didn't think. She just ran. The cub clung to her chest as she sprinted through glowing plants and thick mist. The ground shook behind her. She heard trees snapping, leaves whipping in every direction. The predator was following, fast and heavy. Ilara reached for her wrist control and hit the distress beacon. A red light blinked. Signal weak. Connection loss. "Come on," she shouted, slapping it. No use. The magnetic storm that hung over Griffin was blocking all transmissions. She jumped over a fallen log and slid behind a large root, breathing hard. Her heart hammered in her chest. The cub buried its face against her suit, shivering. Ilara looked down at it. "You're lucky you're cute," she whispered. The cub looked up and blinked. Something massive landed nearby with a heavy thud. Leaves rained down from the trees. Ilara held her breath. The predator's shape appeared in the fog. Tall as a shuttle, shoulders wide, eyes glowing red in the dark. It moved with terrifying grace, sniffing the ground. Hunting. Ilara pressed a button on her wrist. The suit's energy dampeners activated, masking her heat signature. It wasn't perfect, but it might buy her seconds. Seconds were everything. She stayed still. The creature moved closer, each step making the ground tremble. It stopped right in front of the root she hid behind. She could hear it breathing, slow, deep, powerful. The cub made a tiny noise, a soft cry, like it was calling for its mother. Ilara's eyes widened. "No, no, no," she whispered under her breath. The predator's head lifted. Its red eyes focused straight ahead, at her. For a moment, time froze. Ilara stared into its eyes. She saw intelligence there, not just animal instinct. It knew. It leaned closer, sniffing the air. Its teeth were long, sharp, and silver like blades. One wrong move, and she'd be gone. Then something unexpected happened. The cub wriggled out of her arms and dropped to the ground. It squeaked again, a soft, short call. The predator made a low rumbling sound in reply. Ilara stayed perfectly still, watching. The mother didn't attack. She reached out with one massive claw and touched the cub's head gently, pulling it closer. The cub pressed against her leg, chirping happily. Ilara felt relief flood through her body. She didn't move. She just watched as the two creatures reunited, their eyes locked in what looked like a silent understanding. Then the mother turned her head toward Ilara. Their eyes met again, gold and red. The creature didn't attack. It simply stared, as if studying her. Then it let out a low growl, almost a warning, and turned away into the trees, the cub following beside her. Ilara stayed there, shaking, until their shapes vanished into mist. Only then did she let herself breathe. She checked her scanner again. It still flashed red. Predator Class Alpha detected. Nearby nests unknown. She sighed softly. So, not alone, huh? The forest was quiet again. But this time, the silence felt different, heavier. Somewhere deep in the jungle, other roars echoed back. Ilara looked into the mist and whispered, "I think I just met the Apex family." And far away, something else stirred, watching her. The forest was calm again, but Ilara's heartbeat hadn't slowed. She stood still for a long time, listening. The mist hung thick between the trees, glowing faintly from the strange blue light of the plants. Every sound seemed louder now. The drip of water, the hum of insects, her own slow breathing inside her helmet. She looked down at the ground where the cub had stood. Tiny footprints glowed faintly in the moss. Her wrist scanner recorded the heat trace, mapping the pattern automatically. But one thing caught her attention. A strange mark burned into the soil, a pattern shaped like 3 curved claws. It pulsed faintly like it was still alive. Elara crouched beside it. The reading on her wrist lit up red. Energy residue detected. Origin unknown. She frowned. "That's not natural," she whispered. "That's tech." Predator-class species weren't supposed to use technology. They were instinctive hunters, not tool makers. But this mark, it was too precise, too clean. She reached out, brushing her fingers just above the glowing soil. A faint hum vibrated through her glove, like static electricity. Then, as if reacting to her presence, the mark flickered, and a small holographic image blinked to life above it. It was faint, but clear enough to see. A symbol, 3 slashes forming a circle. A hunter's mark. Elara stared at it, realizing what it meant. It wasn't random. It was a warning. She shut off her scanner and stood quickly, glancing around. The air suddenly felt heavier. The mother predator was gone, but that didn't mean safety. On a planet like Griffin, 4 predators hunted in layers. One chased, another waited. And now she had walked right into their hunting ground. She adjusted her rifle strap across her shoulder and began to move. Every step was careful, quiet. The forest glow painted soft shadows across her visor. As she walked, she noticed more marks, faint, carved into tree trunks, burned into rocks. The same 3 slashes. Some were old, others fresh. They formed a path, a boundary line, maybe even a warning to others. Her wrist device pinged softly, scanning each one. Energy pattern stable, recurring frequency origin, bioelectric. Bioelectric? That meant these predators didn't just use energy, they generated it. She stopped and took a slow breath. "Okay," she murmured. "Predators with natural energy fields. That's new." A noise broke her thoughts, a soft clicking sound, rhythmic and close. Elara froze, slowly turning her head. Her eyes caught a movement behind the trees, shadows shifting smooth and fast. Too fast. She turned off her lamp again. The world went dim, but her visor adjusted automatically, giving her green night vision. She scanned the area, holding her rifle steady. There, between 2 black trees, a shape crouched low, watching her. It wasn't the same creature from before. Smaller, thinner, with sharper limbs. Its body shimmered faintly like it was covered in scales of liquid glass. Elara's finger hovered near the trigger. "Don't do it," she whispered. "Stay calm." The creature tilted its head. Its eyes glowed, not red like the mother's, but icy blue. For a long moment, it didn't move. Then it made that same clicking noise again and leaped into the branches above, vanishing without a sound. Elara exhaled. Great, there's more of them. Her visor flickered for a second. Interference. The HUD glitched, static dancing across the screen. She tapped it twice, and the display returned. Only now it showed something new. Heat signatures. Dozens of them, all around her. Her mouth went dry. They weren't moving yet, just watching. From trees, from shadows, from mist. She was standing in the middle of a silent circle. She slowly turned, scanning the area. "You gotta be kidding me." The marks on the ground glowed brighter, reacting to the energy in the air. The light pulsed faster, almost like a signal being sent between them. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the heat signatures vanished from her visor. Gone. Elara spun slowly, heart pounding. No way. They're cloaked. She took a cautious step backward and felt something crunch under her boot. She looked down and froze. It was a bone, small, white, and clean. The ground around her was covered in them, not from animals, but something larger, human-sized. Her breath caught. This was a camp. She knelt and brushed aside moss. A broken helmet lay half buried, the logo of another exploration team faintly visible on its side. Her stomach twisted. The last recorded mission to Grithin, for it had disappeared 6 months ago, and now she knew why. The predators hadn't just hunted animals. They had hunted them. Ilara's suit beeped softly, low oxygen warning. She tapped her tank gauge. 34% remaining. Not enough for a full night. She stood quickly and looked toward the horizon. The forest stretched endlessly, but she could see faint lightning in the distance, the edge of a magnetic storm. Beyond that storm was her ship. She took one last look at the glowing claw mark and whispered, "If this is their territory, then I'm in trouble." Something moved behind her, fast. Ilara spun, rifle raised, but there was nothing, just fog. Then a voice crackled in her calm static, broken but human. "Lara, Ilara, do you copy?" Signal faint. Her eyes widened. "Command? This is Ilara. I hear you. I'm alive." The signal fizzed, cutting in and out. Tracking life signs, unknown readings near you." Then silence. Ilara looked up, scanning the canopy. Her flashlight beam caught a new mark carved high into the tree, not glowing this time, but fresh. The sap still dripped down the bark. 3 slashes, and under it, a new shape, a circle with a dot in the center. Her own symbol, her ship's insignia. Her chest went cold. "They're marking me now." Somewhere in the distance, a roar split the silence. Closer this time. Ilara gripped her rifle tighter. "All right," she whispered. "If this is a hunt, I'm not running." The forest lights flickered, and the jungle seemed to breathe as the next phase of the hunt began. The first roar shook the ground like thunder. Ilara's breath caught as the echo rolled through the forest, bouncing off the metal bark trees. Every living thing fell silent again. Birds, insects, even the wind. It was a sound of power, the sound of a hunter claiming its ground. Ilara pressed her back against a thick tree and scanned the area. Her visor showed only static, the heat signatures gone. The forest lights flickered in strange rhythms, like the planet itself was warning her. She whispered to herself, "Stay calm. Think. You've trained for worse." But she hadn't. Not for this. Somewhere deep in the fog, heavy footsteps crunched through the moss. She turned off her suit's light, letting darkness swallow her. The faint glow of the jungle was enough to move by. She crouched low, rifle raised, eyes darting between shadows. The noise came closer. Not one creature, but several. They move in a circle, slow and careful. Hunters. Ilara's oxygen gauge blinked again. 30%. Time was running out. If she didn't reach her ship before her tank ran dry, she'd suffocate long before any predator got her. She turned east toward the direction of the last storm she'd seen. Her dropship's homing beacon should still be active somewhere near that storm. She switched to night vision and started moving, soft steps, slow breaths. The jungle stretched endlessly. Strange glowing vines hung from the branches, moving slightly as if alive. Each step, she took left faint light prints on the moss. She hated that. It meant she was leaving a trail. Behind her, the forest whispered again. The predators were following. She could feel them now, not just hear them. The air carried their heat, their breath, their hunger. Ilara quickened her pace. "Not today," she muttered under her breath. A sudden screech tore through the air. Something leapt from the trees above, a blur of scales and claws. Ilara spun, firing a pulse from her rifle. The shot lit up the jungle in white blue light, striking the creature midair. It screamed and crashed into the ground, thrashing. Ilara didn't stop. She fired again, short controlled bursts, and the creature dissolved into the mist. Its body flickered out of sight, like it had never existed. Her visor crackled. Warning, optical interference detected. Yeah, no kidding, she said through gritted teeth. She kept running, branches whipping her faceplate. Her lungs burned, her muscles ached, but she didn't stop. Every few seconds, she looked back. The shadows were always there, moving, following, never too close. They were testing her. Predators didn't waste energy. They studied prey before striking. Ilara climbed over a fallen log and stumbled into a clearing. The mist was thinner here. A river cut through the land, glowing faintly under the alien light. She knelt and splashed water on her faceplate, trying to clear her vision. That's when she saw it, a reflection in the water behind her. 2 red eyes. She turned fast, rifle up, but too slow. The creature lunged, claws slicing through the air. She dropped backward into the river, water exploding around her. Her rifle floated out of reach as she struggled to regain balance. The predator stood on the bank, tall and terrible, its body rippling with bioelectric light. Silver scales, long arms, teeth like polished glass. Its chest glowed faintly with the same pattern she had seen before. 3 claw marks forming a circle. Ilara's mind raced. The mark wasn't just a symbol. It was part of them, maybe even a communication signal. The creature leaned forward, sniffing the air. Its voice came out low and harsh. Not a roar this time, but a growl that sounded almost like speech. Ilara couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Mine. She reached for her sidearm, a small pulse pistol, and fired twice. The creature roared, stumbling back, but not falling. It was strong, too strong. She scrambled out of the water and ran, her suit dripping, the oxygen gauge flashing red now. 25% remaining. The forest ahead glowed brighter. She could see strange lights flickering through the trees, metallic shapes half buried in vines. She stopped, squinting. It was a camp. Human, or what was left of one. Tents ripped apart, crates smashed, and burnt metal scattered across the ground. She recognized equipment. Frontier Corps gear, same as hers. Looks like I found what's left of the last team, she said softly. She searched quickly, pulling a data pad from mud. The screen flickered to life, showing a final recorded entry. Predators don't kill for food. They mark. They learn. They wait. Then the video ended. Ilara's stomach turned. They weren't hunting animals. They were hunting intelligence, studying it. A sound broke the silence again. The soft patter claws on metal. She turned, heart racing. 3 of them stepped from the mist, smaller than the mother, but just as deadly. Their eyes glowed red and blue, their movements fast and perfect. Ilara raised her rifle. Come on, then. They moved as one. She fired, spinning, dodging between blasts of light, the air filled with noise and heat. 1 creature fell. Another leapt from the side, slashing her shoulder armor. Sparks flew. She hit it with a kick that sent it flying into a tree. Her rifle overheated. She threw aside and pulled a knife. A blur passed behind her. Another hunter, closing in. She ducked, rolled, stabbed upward. The blade sank into soft flesh. The creature screamed and vanished into smoke. Silence fell again. The rest retreated into the fog, watching, waiting. Ilara stood, chest heaving. Her shoulder burned where the armor was torn. She looked down and saw blood, not red, but black and shimmering. The creature's blood. She wiped it off and looked at her knife. The blade glowed faintly where the liquid touched it, humming softly. Bioelectric energy, she murmured. Maybe I can use this. She glanced toward the horizon. The lightning storm was closer now. Her ship had to be beyond it, but so were the rest of the predators. She took one last look at the forest behind her, silent, watching, and whispered, "If they want to hunt, they'll get one." Then she ran into the storm. The storm was coming. Ilera could see it now, a wall of flashing light moving across the horizon, swallowing the forest in blue fire. The magnetic storm of Grithin 4. The air itself seemed to burn, alive with static. Each flash made her visor flicker and crackle with noise. She ran toward it. Her boots splashed through the wet ground, kicking up glowing mud. The trees bent in the wind, their metal leaves clattering like broken glass. The roar of thunder rolled through the air, mixing with the low growls that followed her. The predators were close. She didn't look back, but she could feel them, shadows moving in perfect rhythm, silent and fast. The ground trembled under their steps. Ilera's lungs burned. The oxygen gauge blinked. 18% remaining. Not enough, but she couldn't slow down. Not now. Lightning split the sky ahead, striking a nearby hill. The blast threw up a cloud of dust and fire. She shielded her face and kept running. Behind her, a screech ripped through the air. One of the predators had leapt from the trees. She ducked and rolled as it landed, claws slashing the ground where she had been a moment ago. The creature's tail whipped past her, slicing through a trunk like paper. Ilera fired a short pulse from her sidearm. The bolt hit its shoulder, sending sparks across its scales. It screamed and lunged again. She turned and sprinted through the storm winds. Rain began to fall, thick, hot drops that steamed as they hit the ground. The magnetic field made the air hum. Every breath felt heavy. "Come on, Ilera," she muttered. "You've survived worse." Another shadow darted through the mist. Then another. 3 shapes now, moving like ghosts, flanking her from both sides. She zigzagged through the glowing trees, sliding under roots, leaping over fallen logs. Her body ached. Her suit systems flickered with overload warnings. The forest ended suddenly, giving way to a rocky slope. Lightning flashed across the valley below, showing a glimpse of metallic wreckage. Her dropship, broken, half buried in vines, but there, relief hit her chest. "Home," she whispered. Then the sound came again, a shriek so loud it rattled her bones. She turned and saw them. 5 hunters this time, climbing down the slope, eyes burning bright. The pack had grown. Ilera gritted her teeth and ran downhill. The rocks were slick with rain. She slipped once, catching herself on a jagged stone. Pain shot through her arm, but she didn't stop. The storm hit full force now. Lightning crashed around her, turning the world white. Her visor filled with static, her HUD unreadable. Every few seconds, the magnetic pulse made her suit tremble. Then, through the chaos, a voice crackled in her comm. "Lara, this is command. Signal weak. Can you hear?" Her heart leapt. "Command, I'm here. I'm alive. I need evac now." The reply broke up into static. "Storm interference, triangulating, hold position." "Hold position? Are you kidding me?" she yelled. "They're right behind me." But the signal died. She slid down the last few meters of rock, hitting the valley floor hard. Her knee throbbed. She stumbled forward, half limping, half running toward the ship. The hull glowed faintly under the storm's light. The predators reached the ridge above her. Lightning lit their silhouettes, long limbs, sharp tails, glowing chests. They roared together, a sound that made the air vibrate. Ilera reached her ship and slammed her hand on the entry pad. Nothing. Dead. The system was fried by the storm. She cursed under her breath and ran to the side panel. A small maintenance hatch manual access. She pried it open, grabbed a power cell from her belt, and shoved it into the slot. The lights flickered to life, weak but real. Come on, she whispered. A deep growl answered her from behind. She turned. The lead predator was standing just a few meters away. Its eyes glowed red, its chest pulsing with energy. Rain dripped down its scales. It was bigger than the others, stronger, older. Elara raised her weapon, aiming straight at its chest. Don't, she said softly. You don't want to do this. The creature tilted its head, watching her. Then it roared and charged. Elara fired, once, twice, 3 times, the bolt slamming into its chest, but it kept coming. She dove to the side as its claws ripped through the air, slicing into the ship's hull. Sparks exploded. She rolled, grabbed a fallen pipe, and swung it hard. The blow hit the side of the creature's head. It staggered but didn't fall. Elara saw her chance. She ran to the maintenance hatch and dove inside. The narrow tunnel led under the ship's floor. She crawled fast, dragging her gear behind her. A metallic thud shook the tunnel. The creature was trying to tear through the hull. She could hear its claws scraping the metal above her. Her oxygen gauge flashed red. 10%. She reached the emergency core chamber, the backup power unit. She slammed her palm against the console. It blinked, then hummed to life. The ship's engines coughed. The lights flickered. The floor trembled as energy flowed through the system again. Above, the predator howled, realizing the noise meant movement. Elara grabbed the intercom mic and shouted, "This is Elara Rhea Frontier Corps, requesting immediate retrieval. Coordinates transmitting now." She hit send. The ship's antenna pulsed once, beaming a signal through the storm. Then the tunnel ceiling bent inward. The predator had found her. Its claws punched through the metal, just inches from her face. Elara screamed and rolled back, pulling her blaster. She fired upward. The bolt hit, and the metal roof exploded in light. The creature roared in pain and stumbled back. The ship's engines roared louder, shaking the ground. Elara crawled out the rear exit as the hull began to rise on its thrusters. The predator circled outside, growling, but the ship's power core pulsed, throwing waves of light that pushed them back. Elara stood in the rain, soaked, shaking, her chest heaving. She looked at them one last time, 5 glowing shapes in the stormlight, watching her go. She whispered, "Not pray. Remember that." Then the ship lifted into the storm, lightning wrapping around it like fire. Below, the predators watched, and one of them touched the ground where she had stood, leaving behind a new mark. 3 slashes in a circle, a sign of respect. The storm raged around her like a living thing. Lightning carved the sky in jagged white lines. The ship's hull shook with every blast of thunder. Inside, alarms screamed and red lights flashed across the control panels. Elara slumped into the pilot's chair, chest heaving. Her suit was torn, soaked, and covered in burn marks. Oxygen readout, 6% remaining. Her fingers trembled as she tore off her helmet, gasping in the recycled air. For the first time in hours, she was alive, truly alive. She leaned back, eyes closed, listening to the ship's engines hum. It was a rough, broken sound, but it was beautiful. She had made it. She had survived. Then she heard a sound that didn't belong. A soft whimper. Elara's eyes snapped open. The noise came from behind her, near the rear cargo bay. At first she thought it was the ship's hydraulics, but then it came again. Higher pitched. Weak. Afraid. Her stomach turned cold. "No way," she whispered. She stood slowly and grabbed her sidearm, moving toward the sound. The red emergency lights painted everything in blood-colored shadows. Steam hissed from a cracked vent. The whimper came again, followed by a faint scratching noise. Ilera reached the cargo bay door and pressed the panel. It slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was dim, filled with crates and broken equipment, and in the corner, half hidden behind a storage box, was the small silver cub. Her heart stopped. The same cub from before, the predator's child. Its fur was wet and matted, one leg limping, eyes dull with exhaustion. It looked up at her weakly and chirped once, almost like it recognized her. Ilera froze in place. How? It must have followed her into the ship, maybe when she crawled through the maintenance tunnel. Somehow, through the chaos, it had survived the storm too. She lowered her weapon. "You're supposed to be with your mother," she said softly. "Not here." The cub tilted its head, trembling. It made a tiny sound, part growl, part cry. It was scared, hungry, and hurt. Ilera sighed and knelt slowly. "You shouldn't be alive." But then again, neither should I. Her scanner still hung from her belt. She pointed it toward the cub. The readings appeared immediately. Vital signs weak. Dehydration. Possible internal injury. She bit her lip. Helping it was a bad idea. A terrible one. It was a predator, a species that hunted her kind. If the pack found out she had its young, they would tear her apart. But when she looked into the cub's golden eyes, she couldn't ignore the truth. It wasn't a monster. It was a child. Her thoughts echoed with her commander's old words. "We explore to understand, not to conquer. Humanity's greatest strength isn't power, it's mercy." She holstered her weapon. "All right," she murmured. "Let's fix you up." Ilera opened a medkit and pulled out a healing patch. The cub hissed softly as she pressed it against its leg, but then it relaxed. The wound began to close under the blue light. "There you go," she whispered. "You're tougher than you look." The cub blinked slowly and pressed its head against her glove. The gesture was gentle, trusting. It purred faintly, a sound that vibrated like soft thunder. Outside, lightning cracked again. The ship's console flickered. A warning message appeared on the main screen. "Motion detected. External perimeter." Ilera turned fast. "No." She rushed to the front and looked out the viewport. Shapes were moving through the rain, large, glowing shapes. The predators. At least 3 of them, maybe more. They were following the ship's heat trail. Ilera's heart pounded. "They're looking for you," she whispered, glancing back at the cub. It chirped softly in reply. She stared at the radar. They were getting closer. 50 meters, 40, 30. She had 2 options. Fly away and leave the cub, or stay and risk everything. Her logical mind screamed to leave. The Frontier Corps would understand. They'd call it survival protocol. But deep down, she knew she couldn't. She'd seen the creature's fear. She'd felt its heartbeat. It was alive because of her. Ilera took a long, steady breath. "Humans don't run from doing what's right," she whispered. She scooped up the cub and walked toward the hatch. The storm wind howled as she opened the ramp, rain blasting into the cargo bay. The cub whimpered and buried its face in her chest. "Sure," she said softly. "I know. It's okay. You'll go home." Lightning flashed again, and she saw them. 3 tall figures standing at the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing red through the storm. Ilera stepped forward, holding the cub high. "You want it?" she shouted. "Here." For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the predators moved closer, slow and deliberate. Its massive body glistened under the rain. It stopped just a few steps away. The cub chirped again, reaching out with its tiny claws. The predator let out a deep, rumbling sound, almost like a sigh. Ilera knelt and placed the cub gently on the wet ground. The little creature limped forward, crying softly. The larger predator bent down and touched its head with care. Ilera stepped back, breathing hard. She expected an attack. None came. The creature looked up at her. Their eyes met, gold and human blue. For a long, silent moment, the storm faded into the background. There was no fear, no hate, only understanding. The predator gave a low growl that wasn't a threat. It was something else, a sound of acknowledgement. Then it turned, the cub at its side, and disappeared into the mist. Ilara stood there, shaking, rain streaming down her face. The ship hummed behind her, ready to leave. She whispered, "That's what makes us human." Above, the storm began to break. A single beam of sunlight cut through the clouds, landing on the wet ground where the cub had stood. 3 small claw prints glowing faintly in the mud. Ilara smiled. "Goodbye, little one." Then she turned and walked back into her ship, unaware that far beyond the trees, a dozen other red eyes were watching and learning. The storm had passed. The sky above Grithin foreglowed a deep violet, streaked with fading lightning. The forest below steamed in the sunlight, each drop of water shining like crystal. The silence after the storm felt strange, almost sacred. Ilara stood at the ship's open ramp, staring into the mist-filled valley. The predators were gone. The cub was gone. Only the marks in the mud remained, tiny, perfect, and glowing faintly in the new light. For a moment, she just stood there, letting the wind wash over her face. She felt empty and full at the same time. Alive. Change. Her ship's console beeped softly behind her. A new signal was coming through, weak but steady. "Lara Ray, this is Command Control. We received your distress beacon. Are you alive?" She smiled faintly and pressed a calm switch. "Alive. Battered, but alive." Static crackled before the reply came. "Good to hear your voice, Commander. We've lost contact for 36 hours. What happened down there?" Ilara looked back at the jungle. The sunlight filtered through the silver trees, making them shimmer like glass. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," she said quietly. "But I think I made first contact." "Hostile?" Ilara paused. "Not exactly." She shut the ramp and walked toward the cockpit. The ship was badly damaged, wires exposed, panels cracked, but it still worked. The engines hummed softly beneath her boots, steady and familiar. She sat in the pilot's chair, resting her hand on the controls. "Command, I'm bringing the ship home," she said. "Copy that. Preparing retrieval." She leaned back, closed her eyes as the engines powered up. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying the smell of rain and life. But before she could lift off, her scanner beeped, a proximity alert. Ilara frowned and checked the display. The radar showed movement, dozens of readings. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." She switched the external cameras on and froze. The predators had returned. They stood at the edge of the clearing, silent and still, not attacking, watching. There were more now, at least 20, their bodies gleaming in the sunlight. The cub stood in front of them, small and proud, golden eyes glowing bright. Ilara's heart raced. "You came back." One of the larger predators, the same one she'd seen before, the leader, stepped forward. Its chest shimmered with faint blue lines. It lifted one arm slowly and struck its claws into the ground. 3 slashes, then a circle. The mark glowed. Ilara stared. That was her symbol, the one they'd copied earlier. But now, the predator had changed it. Inside the circle was a smaller mark, the shape of a human handprint. Her breath caught. They weren't marking her as prey. They were marking her as equal. She stood and walked down the ramp slowly, unarmed, hands open. The predators didn't move. The air buzzed faintly with energy. When she reached the bottom, the cub trotted forward and stopped at her boots. It looked up at her and chirped softly, then pressed its small head against her leg. Ilara knelt and smiled. "You're safe now," she whispered. The leader stepped closer. Its shadow fell across her, huge and silent. For a second, she wondered if this was the end. But then the creature lowered its head. A bow. Every predator behind it did the same. A synchronized motion, slow and deliberate. Elara swallowed hard. "You're thanking me," she said softly. "You're showing respect." The creature straightened and gave a low growl that almost sounded like words. She couldn't understand the language, but the meaning was clear. A promise. Elara nodded. "I'll tell them," she said. "I'll make sure they know you're not monsters." The predator looked at her one last time, then turned. The pack moved as one, silent and graceful, disappearing into the misty trees, until only the sound of dripping rain remained. Elara stood there, staring after them. Her chest felt tight, her eyes wet. Then she turned back to her ship. The calm buzzed again. "Elara? Status report." She smiled faintly. "Mission complete. But you'll want to update the records. Command." "Explain." Elara took a deep breath and looked toward the jungle. Predator Class Alpha is intelligent. They hunt, but not for blood, for understanding. They watch, they learn, and they remember kindness. Silence on the other end. Then, "Are you certain?" "I'm looking at their mark right now." She turned to the muddy ground beside her ramp. The glowing symbol still pulsed softly. 3 slashes, a circle, and a human handprint. "Maybe," she said, "we weren't the only intelligent species here after all." "Understood, Commander. Retrieval ship en route. ETA, 15 minutes. Elara smiled and shut off to calm the engines rumble beneath her feet as the storm clouds began to drift away. Sunlight washed across the valley. She walked back up the ramp, glancing once more at the mark. For the first time since she landed on Griffin 4, she felt no fear, only connection. As the ship lifted off, the wind swept through the forest, carrying the echoes of her encounter, a story that would spread through both species for generations. Later, when her ship broke through the clouds and the stars filled her view, Elara whispered quietly to herself, "This is who we are. Not conquerors, not prey, just human." She smiled, eyes reflecting the stars. Far below, the jungle shimmered with new light. Hidden in the trees, the cub watched the sky, chirping softly as the ship disappeared into the heavens. The leader beside it rumbled a low growl, not anger, but pride. They turned and vanished into the silver forest, leaving behind one final mark glowing on a fallen log. 3 slashes, a circle, and a star. The mark of the human who showed mercy. The mark of the First Alliance. The mark of hope